Ghana as a one-party state in 1964 brought him under heavy fire by his political critics. They used those to undo him in a coup d'etat in 1966.
Under Nkrumah, there was one-party state, but I strongly believe that with the wind of change that have been blowing across the length and breadth of the world, Nkrumah, as smart and as astute as he was, would have changed him for the multi-party democracy as we have now.
No, the one-party system was a logical development at a particular time in history. A particular time in history. We had just emerged from independence. Political party formations were very new, and already we had begun to fight among ourselves. When the Ashantis created a national liberation movement, it was to fight Nkrumah. And it didn't allow for a kind of a gestation period in which the new nation, united in purpose, beyond the attainment of independence by way of the flag and the national anthem, to create a unified country. This is the reason why he had the one-party state in 1964. He didn't declare it, he did it by plebiscite, by referendum.
This, however, raises questions of whether Dr. Kwame Nkrumah felt insecure.
When Nkrumah was in power, there were more than 15 attempts to kill him. There were attempts to kill him. The last one was the Kulungugu bomb, which was thrown at him in current Upper East, near the Burkina border. The very first one was an attempt on his life in 1953 when he was Prime Minister.
Despite this, many believe Kwame Nkrumah did his best to create an economic legacy for the country. The positives of Kwame Nkrumah, as history recalls, included the creation of a social and economic system in which no one controlled or owned the most. His vision was to industrialize Ghana in the shortest time possible. In 1962, on a radio broadcast titled Work and Happiness, Ghana's 7-year development plan, Dr. Nkrumah launched a massive development project. This vision was founded on the Volta River Project, a massive undertaking to explore Ghana's vast bauxite stores and process it into aluminium. Foreseeing the trickle-down effects that the construction of a hydroelectric dam would have on the country's economy, Kwame Nkrumah convinced the then U.S. President John Kennedy to aid the country financially to generate cheap electricity. Soon afterwards, the Akosombo Dam was built, after which other industries took off. He first established the Tema Steel Factory, a Boso Glass Factory, and the Ghana Cement Factory. Cocoa was and still is the mainstream of Ghana's economy. Unfortunately, the sacks in which cocoa beans were packaged were imported, hence the establishment of a jute factory to produce sacks. Realizing the need for the country to eventually process its own cocoa beans and supply value-added products to the world markets, Kwame Nkrumah set up the West African Mill. The northern region of Ghana is blessed with tomatoes, however, all went to waste due to the absence of a processing factory. 2 processing factories were set up there, and these were followed by a meat processing factory at Bolgatanga in the Upper East region of Ghana. With all these in place, the then Gold Coast was among the wealthiest and most socially advanced areas in Africa, with schools, railways, hospitals, social security, and an advanced economy. Years down the line, many of these industries are non-functional, whilst many of them are no longer owned by the state. These state-owned companies were placed on divestiture and sold between 1989 and 1992. A divestiture implementation committee was set up by the then ruling People's National Democratic Congress to oversee the process.
Privatization was at the instance of the so-called development partners who felt that the state's involvement in those industries over the years was not helping to achieve real growth within the economy because of the the collapse that they were suffering. The nation could divest from a company and offload to Ghanaian enterprise. But we did not have a situation where we have the capacity for Ghanaian entrepreneurs to take over those enterprises. Or even at a point, with the insistence of the Bretton Woods institutions, it's like you must open up.
The factories were there. They created the factories. But you needed a certain caliber of trained people, which were not there. So if somebody tells me that that industry that was set did not immediately make profit and therefore it was wrong to have set it up, I say shame to you. Because as far as I'm concerned, it was an industry that was to grow. Meanwhile, our human resource was being trained, our skilled manpower was being trained, and therefore, give it a few more years, you would have had the basic human resource that you need to make these factories profitable.
I think Nkrumah didn't just build state industries for the sake of the state owning industries. In the circumstances of the time, for instance, state gold mines had to be created to invest in our mines because our mines were going to be just left to rot at independence. And of course, in subsequent years, in subsequent decades, it has not always been possible to maintain state investment. And so in subsequent years, there have been occasions when it's been necessary to privatize in the sense of bringing in private investment and so on.
Hundreds of Ghanaians lost their jobs as a result of the sale of those industries to foreign nationals. While some believe those transactions did the country more harm than good, others believe it was the best decision considering the circumstances of those times. This debate is likely to continue for a long time, but the legacy of Kwame Nkrumah still remains. From Accra, Ghana, Ama Ejari for AIT News.